Welcome back to Mission of the Chosen, where tonight we step into a mystery so deep that your spirit already feels it stirring. Silence itself may be heaven's loudest command. Stop scrolling right now. What you're about to hear isn't motivation, it isn't inspiration. This is a divine command, straight from the throne room of heaven itself. And God's instruction for your life right now is shocking. Stay silent. Do not speak a word. I know what you're thinking. Silent when they're attacking my character. Silent when my own family doesn't understand me, when I'm being accused of things I never did. It feels impossible. But listen closely. Your silence isn't surrender. It's your secret weapon. It's the spiritual strategy heaven just placed in your trembling hands. As you sit here, maybe exhausted from defending yourself, worn out from explaining your heart to people who already judged you, you need to hear this. God is whispering your name in the stillness. He sees the pain, the confusion, the words that have cut you deeper than any blade. But in this exact moment, something sacred is happening. The same God who told Moses to be still and see his salvation is inviting you into a holy strategy, the strength of silence. Here's what they don't want you to know. Your silence is about to trigger the most powerful move of God you've ever witnessed. The very people who have been provoking you are about to watch heaven vindicate you in ways that will leave them speechless. Right now, you may feel like you're holding a fragile candle in the middle of a storm. One wrong word, one emotional outburst, one attempt to defend yourself, and the light meant to guide your future could blow out. But what if I told you that silence isn't weakness, it's warfare? I want to pause and thank every single one of you who supports this mission. Whether through prayer, super thanks, or simply sharing these words, you're helping light the way for others who feel isolated in their calling. If your spirit resonates with what you're hearing, let heaven know. Tap the like button and stand boldly in this moment. This isn't content for the masses scrolling past. This is a word sent for you, and you know it. That's why your spirit won't let you scroll away. That's why your fingers stopped right here. The truth is, the enemy has been trying to provoke you into speaking when God has been asking you to be still. Every accusation, every family argument, every unfair word at work, it's all been a setup to push you into reacting at the wrong time. Heaven is about to reveal why your silence has been your salvation all along. Stay with me, because the power of divine silence will rewrite your entire story. Vindication is not coming through your voice. It's coming through God's victory. Why does your family look at you like you're delusional when you mention calling? Why do your children roll their eyes when you speak of destiny? Why does the world treat your spiritual depth as weakness? The silence you've been walking in, the weight in your chest, it isn't punishment. It's protection. You've been told that your quietness makes you invisible. You've believed the lie that refusing to argue back makes you weak, but I'm about to break that deception wide open. When God formed you in the womb, did He announce it to the world? Did He broadcast the miracle with fanfare? No. The most sacred creation happened in complete silence, hidden away until the right moment. That's exactly what's happening in your life. Elijah learned it too. He searched for God in the earthquake, in the storm, in the fire. But God came in the still small voice, the whisper powerful enough to shift nations. Psalm 46:10 doesn't say defend yourself and know. It says, be still and know that I am God. You've been trying to fight your battles with explanations and words, but every time you speak to justify yourself, you interrupt the orchestration heaven is arranging on your behalf. Think of Jesus. Before every miracle, before He fed thousands, before He raised the dead, He withdrew into silence. He didn't announce His plan. He didn't defend His methods. He aligned quietly with the Father and then moved in supernatural power. Your silence is not empty. It's filled with strategy. It's filled with God's presence, forming a shield around you that no darkness can break through. Right now, whisper it if you can. Silence is my shield. Let those words settle inside you. The enemy wants you talking because when you're defending, you're not advancing. When you're explaining, you're not elevating. When you're reacting, you're not receiving. That's why silence is so dangerous to him. Think carefully. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you outright. He just needs to make you speak at the wrong time. How many battles have you lost? Not because you sinned, but because you reacted. That family dinner where you exploded after they pushed your buttons. That workplace conflict where defending yourself somehow turned you into the villain. That late-night message you regret sending months later. The enemy studies your triggers like a sniper studies a target. He knows which voice to send, which memory to stir, which button to press to make you speak when God told you to stay quiet. Picture this: you're carrying a glass of pure water across a battlefield. That water is your miracle. Every step counts. But explosions of gossip and betrayal are all around. The enemy doesn't want the glass broken. He just wants you to spill what's inside. Proverbs 18:21 says it clearly. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. The devil knows it too. One careless word can delay blessings for months. One angry outburst can close doors God is unlocking. The truth is, most believers don't lose miracles through rebellion. They lose them through reaction. And here's the greater revelation: you are not fighting those family members, those co-workers, those neighbors. They are not your real enemy. They are instruments being used to push you into speaking. The true battlefield is in your mouth. Every time you defend yourself, you take the microphone away from God. Every time you explain yourself, you step into a fight that was never yours to win. And heaven is whispering, if you stay silent now, I will speak for you later. But when God speaks, no man can question it. So here's the piercing question: will you guard your miracle, or will you give the enemy the reaction he's been waiting for? Because the warrior who sharpens his sword in silence always cuts deeper than the one who shouts his plans to the enemy. Chosen one, stop scrolling right now. What you're about to hear isn't motivation, it isn't inspiration. This is a divine command, straight from the throne room of heaven itself. And God's instruction for your life right now is shocking. Joseph was only 17 when God gave him dreams that painted glimpses of his future. They weren't ordinary dreams, they were holy previews of what was coming. He saw greatness, he saw leadership, he saw family bowing in reverence, but in his youthful eagerness, he made a mistake that changed everything. Genesis 37:5 says, Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more, just a handful of words, but they ignited jealousy like fire. His brothers weren't inspired, they weren't humbled, they were enraged. Joseph's calling was real, but his timing was disastrous. The very ones who should have defended him became the ones who betrayed him. His mistake wasn't dreaming, it was speaking too soon. Now pause for a moment. How many times have you shared your heart with people who weren't ready to handle it? How many visions did you place into ears that twisted them into envy, mockery, or doubt? Could it be that some of the battles you're fighting today were sparked by words released too early? Think about that dinner table where you poured out your hopes, only to be laughed at. Think about the moment you confided in someone you trusted, and later heard your story spread like gossip. Think about the sacred vision God whispered to you that suddenly became ammunition in someone else's mouth. Words are keys. They unlock or they lock. They either open doors to destiny or trap you in prisons built by misunderstanding. Joseph learned to protect his silence the hard way. 13 years in waiting, years of betrayal, false accusations, and imprisonment taught him discipline. He stopped announcing. He started serving. And in the quiet, he grew. When Pharaoh finally needed an interpreter, Joseph spoke, but this time in alignment with God's timing. In one conversation, he shifted from prisoner to prime minister. Here's what strikes deep. The same brothers who hated him for his words eventually bowed before him, fulfilling the dream exactly as God had promised. Destiny wasn't destroyed. It was delayed until silence had done its work. So let me ask you, are you still revealing treasures to those who treat them as threats? Are you giving pearls to people who step on them? Heaven is protecting you by teaching restraint. Every promise is stored safely, waiting for the moment when no one can deny it. Whisper this to yourself: Lord, seal my lips until your time arrives. Because the very mouths mocking you today may be the ones testifying of your victory tomorrow. Look at Jericho. Israel marched 7 days in silence. They faced their enemies with nothing but footsteps and trust, mocked, ridiculed, doubted, yet they held their tongue until God said shout. And when the command came, the walls fell. Or think of Moses with his people trapped by the Red Sea, Pharaoh's army behind, waves before. Instead of rousing them with arguments, Moses simply said, "Stand still and see salvation." That same call rests on your life now. You've been worn thin from defending yourself. You've wasted energy trying to justify choices that were never meant for human approval. And in the chaos, you've missed the miracle that silence was preparing. Picture heaven like an orchestra, every instrument tuned, every angel positioned, every blessing aligned. Before the music of breakthrough begins, there must first be silence. That's why the enemy is trying to break you. That's why provocations come from every direction. He knows silence is heaven's weapon. But most believers lose blessings not through sin, but through speech. Not rebellion, but reaction. Not disobedience, but defense. One outburst at the wrong moment. One defensive explanation too soon. One sharp reply in anger. That's all it takes to delay a promise. But now God is uncovering the strategy. He's saying, "This battle isn't yours to win with words. Let me speak on your behalf." While they gossip, God is building your testimony. While they accuse, heaven is preparing your vindication. So here is the decision that shapes your future. Will you guard your miracle with silence, or hand it over by speaking too soon? The warrior who learns to sharpen his sword in silence always cuts deeper than the one who shouts his plans to the enemy. Chosen one, guard your lips now, because your silence is building a future louder than any defense you could give. Some of you feel like silence has been forced upon you, like God himself pressed the mute button on your life. You pray, you cry, you beg for answers, and all you hear is nothing. That emptiness gnaws at you. You wonder if heaven has forgotten your name. But silence from God does not mean abandonment. It means preparation. Look at Job. His world collapsed, his children gone, his wealth stripped, his health shattered. His friends accused him, his wife urged him to curse God, and for 37 chapters, heaven was silent, not a word. Yet behind that silence, heaven was setting up the greatest restoration in biblical history. God's quiet was not rejection, it was positioning. Job couldn't see it in the ashes, but silence was writing a comeback. David knew that silence too. He hid in caves while Saul hunted him like prey. Candlelight flickered on walls as he poured his heart into psalms of desperation, asking if God had forgotten his promise of a throne. But what David thought was abandonment was actually training. A king was being forged in silence, a strength the palace could never teach. Even Jesus embraced silence. Before feeding thousands, before raising the dead, before walking on water, he withdrew to lonely places, not to escape, but to align. Silence became his sanctuary, his power source. Here's the truth that flips everything. Silence isn't proof that God has left you. Silence is proof that God trusts you. He doesn't hand the mystery of stillness to just anyone. It's reserved for those he is shaping for weightier glory. Take a breath right now. The quiet you feel isn't empty. It's pregnant with promise. The silence surrounding you is not a void, it's a womb. Something is forming, unseen but undeniable. Every unanswered prayer, every night of tears, every unanswered why, is the soil where miracles grow. If God spoke too soon, it would ruin everything he's orchestrating. His silence is not absence, it's protection. He's working so close to your situation that even one early word could unravel the design. Your enemies may think silence means defeat, but heaven knows silence means danger for them. Because when God finally speaks on behalf of someone who trusted him in the quiet, the entire world shakes. Think about Jericho again. 7 days of silence. Can you imagine how ridiculous they felt? Marching in circles while the enemy mocked from the walls. Yet it was precisely their silence that charged the atmosphere with power, and when the shout finally came, heaven's timing shook the earth. The same is true for you. What feels like dead quiet is actually the countdown to breakthrough. But here's the question that cuts to the core. Can you stay quiet long enough for God to move? Can you resist the urge to defend, to justify, to explain? Can you let silence do what shouting never could? Because your quietness is not emptiness, it is obedience. And obedience in silence speaks louder in heaven than the loudest argument on earth. So hear this in your bones tonight. Your silence is not weakness, it's worship, it's trust, it's strategy. And it will be the very thing that signals heaven to unleash what you've been waiting for. Chosen one, hold steady because your silence is the drumbeat that will call down victory. The enemy doesn't always come charging with obvious attacks. He's more subtle than that. He studies you like a hunter studies prey, like a sniper tracking every move. He knows your weaknesses. He knows your triggers, and he crafts situations carefully to push you into breaking silence at the worst possible time. Think back. That family gathering where someone brought up your past just to watch you squirm. That coworker who always questions your abilities until you feel small. That neighbor who spreads lies about you in whispers, knowing you'll hear them later. None of these are random. They are setups. The enemy is pulling strings, hoping you'll take the bait. And what's at the center of every trap? Your words. It's not the argument itself. It's not even the people who provoke you. The battle is in your mouth, because once you let words fly angry, defensive, desperate, you've given the enemy what he wanted all along. Proverbs 18:21 tells us, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And believe me, the devil read that verse too. He knows that one sentence in the wrong moment can shut a door God was opening. One emotional outburst can delay blessings for months, even years. Most believers don't lose their destiny through sin. They lose it through speech. Not rebellion, but reaction. Not disobedience, but defense. Picture yourself carrying a glass of pure water across a battlefield. That water is your miracle. Every step is sacred. Every breath is precious. Suddenly explosions surround you, gossip, betrayal, false accusations. The enemy doesn't want to break the glass. He wants you to spill what's inside. And you've felt it, haven't you? That moment when pressure builds and you just can't hold back anymore. You say it, you text it, you post it, and afterward, regret eats you alive. Because deep down, you know your silence would have spoken louder. This is why restraint is spiritual warfare. The enemy wants you drained by defending yourself. He wants you distracted from receiving heaven's instructions. If he can get you talking, he knows you'll miss the whisper of God. But here's the revelation that flips everything. Every second you choose silence instead of reaction, you're handing the battle back to heaven. Every time you refuse to explain yourself, you're letting God's voice speak louder than your defense. That family member who mocks you, they're not your enemy. That manager who criticizes your every move, not the enemy. They are pawns used to press your buttons and bait your mouth. The real fight is spiritual. The real test is silence. And here's what's about to shake your understanding. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you outright. He just needs to delay you long enough to make you doubt your own calling. He doesn't have to burn the glass. He just has to make you spill the water. That's why silence is sacred. It protects what God placed inside you. It preserves the miracle until it's time for heaven to reveal it. So the question hanging over your life right now is this: will you let the enemy trick you into spilling your promise, or will you guard it with silence until the moment God commands you to speak? Chosen one, bite your tongue, still your spirit, because your silence is the shield keeping your destiny intact. Elijah thought God's voice would thunder. He expected earthquakes, wind, fire, dramatic displays that no one could miss. But heaven chose something else, a whisper. A sound so soft that only the spiritually attuned could hear it. That's the mystery of divine silence. Power doesn't always arrive with a roar. Sometimes it slips in quietly, wrapped in stillness, carrying more authority than the loudest storm. You see, silence is not empty space. Silence is full. It's full of faith. It's full of hidden strategies. It's full of God's protective presence that builds invisible walls around you. When Jesus withdrew to pray, he wasn't escaping responsibility. He was entering alignment. Before multiplying loaves and fishes, before raising Lazarus from the tomb, before stepping onto the water, he chose silence. Alone with the Father, he gathered strength that couldn't be shaken by crowds or critics. Silence isn't a pause, it's preparation. It isn't weakness, it's weaponry. It positions you to hear what noise drowns out. And right now, heaven is teaching you that same discipline. Repeat these words out loud. Silence is my shield. Let them settle deep inside your spirit. Because the enemy knows the truth. When you're talking, you're not listening. When you're defending, you're not advancing. When you're reacting, you're not receiving. That's why provocation surrounds you. That's why you feel pressed on every side. The devil isn't afraid of your noise, he's terrified of your stillness. Because when you stay quiet long enough to hear heaven, you become unstoppable. Think about it. Jesus didn't shout his plans. He didn't defend his miracles. He simply acted, and the results silenced every critic. That's what silence does. It speaks louder than words ever could. So what is heaven asking from you right now? Sacred silence. To hold your peace while God fights your battles. to guard your tongue when every part of you wants to retaliate, to trust that your restraint is the very signal heaven has been waiting for. It isn't easy, but this is where your victory begins. Not with shouting, not with proving yourself, not with explanations, with silence. Chosen one, stand still, say nothing, and watch the whisper of heaven shake the earth around you. Imagine the army of Israel standing before Jericho's walls, impenetrable stone, fortified gates, enemies watching from above. Every human instinct would scream for action, battering rams, war cries, strategies. But God gave a strange instruction: march in silence. Day after day, they circled the city, no shouting, no taunting, just the sound of footsteps and the creak of leather straps. 7 days of silence while enemies mocked and laughed. To outsiders it looked like weakness. To heaven, it was obedience. And then, at the appointed time, God gave the signal. One unified shout shook centuries of stone until walls crumbled into dust. The miracle wasn't in the noise, it was in the silence that charged the atmosphere with power. That story is your story. Your silence right now is loading the atmosphere around your life with invisible strength. Every time you resist the urge to retaliate, you are marching around your own Jericho. Every step in silence is another crack in the wall you thought would never fall. Think of Moses at the Red Sea. The Israelites trapped between an army and a wall of water, panic rising, accusations flying. Yet Moses didn't tell them to fight. He didn't tell them to argue with their enemies. He spoke 5 words that carried the weight of eternity: stand still and see salvation. Stillness is not inactivity, it's trust. And trust is louder than any defense you could make with your mouth. Here's the part most people miss. Heaven does its greatest work in the hush before the breakthrough. Just like an orchestra tuning before the music begins, the silence you're enduring is not wasted, it's setting the stage. But the enemy knows. That's why pressure rises. That's why provocations intensify. He's desperate to pull you into speaking too soon, because if you can stay silent, heaven's move cannot be stopped. Look closely at your life right now. Who are the people pushing your buttons? Who always seems to bring up your past, your failures, your weaknesses? They're not the true enemy, they're bait. Instruments in the hand of darkness, sent to break your silence before your walls collapse. Don't fall for it. Don't hand over your breakthrough with careless words. Because here's the shocking truth: most believers don't lose miracles through rebellion. They lose them through reaction. One argument, one defense, one sentence spoken at the wrong time. But you won't. Not this time. You've seen the trap, and now heaven is giving you the strategy to outlast it. Chosen one, keep your mouth closed and your spirit steady, because every silent step you take is shaking the walls that once looked unshakable. Job's life unraveled in a single season. One report after another struck like lightning. His wealth gone, his children lost, his health collapsing. And when he needed heaven's comfort the most, God went quiet. 37 chapters of silence. His friends accused him. His wife urged him to give up and curse God. The sky felt closed. His prayers felt like echoes in an empty cave. Yet all the while, heaven was writing a story that Job couldn't see from the ash heap. God's quiet wasn't rejection, it was positioning. In the silence, Job was being prepared for a restoration so overwhelming it would eclipse every loss. Double portion, greater blessing, renewed health, multiplied influence, all waiting on the other side of silence. This is the part we rarely want to admit. Sometimes silence feels like abandonment, but it's actually proof that heaven is still holding the pen. The author hasn't stopped writing. He's just setting the stage for the next chapter. David knew this feeling too. Hiding in caves, hunted like prey, he wondered if God had forgotten his promise of a throne. He poured out psalms soaked with fear and tears, yet no voice thundered from the sky. Still, in that silence, God was shaping a shepherd into a king. The cave became his classroom. The hush became his training ground. Even Jesus walked this path. Hanging on the cross, he cried, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And heaven stayed quiet. For 3 days, silence covered the earth. But in that silence, the greatest victory of eternity was being forged. Resurrection power doesn't come without a silent tomb. So if you've been crying into the night and hearing nothing back, you're in good company. The giants of faith walked this same road. Their silence didn't mean God had left, it meant God was closer than they realized. Take this in. Silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. Heaven doesn't waste quiet seasons. Every unanswered prayer, every long pause, every still moment is storing power for what's coming. Your tears are not ignored, your sighs are not unnoticed. Every silent night you endure is counted in heaven's calendar, and when the time is right, the story will unfold. But until then, trust the hush, because what looks like stillness is actually the womb of your miracle. Chosen one, do not mistake heaven's silence for absence, because that quiet is the drumbeat of a comeback you never saw coming. Silence doesn't just protect you, it exposes your enemies. When you hold your peace, the schemes of those working against you eventually reveal themselves without you lifting a finger. Think about it. When you refuse to argue back, the one who spreads lies keeps talking, and sooner or later, their contradictions betray them. When you decline to defend yourself, the one plotting against you eventually runs out of credibility. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their true intentions for all to see. This is why the enemy hates your restraint. He wants you to react, because if you speak too soon, you blur the line. You end up looking just like those accusing you. But if you stay quiet, their noise stands alone. Jesus embodied this when he stood before Pilate, accused, mocked, condemned by false witnesses, yet he answered nothing. His silence unsettled rulers more than any defense ever could. Scripture says Pilate marveled greatly. Why? Because silence carried a weight no argument could match. And the same is true for you. Every time you resist the urge to clap back, you are forcing the enemy's hand. He is left talking to himself, while heaven prepares your vindication. Remember, silence is not passive, it's active warfare. It's a shield over your destiny and a net that traps the plans of those who oppose you. So the question is, can you trust God enough to let him reveal what you don't need to explain? Can you keep quiet long enough for the truth to rise on its own? Chosen one, hold your tongue, because your silence will echo louder than their shouting when heaven uncovers every hidden scheme against you. Silence doesn't only shield you from enemies, it strengthens you from within. Every time you choose not to react, something unshakable begins to grow inside you. Because silence forces you inward. It pushes you to listen to the voice of God instead of the noise of people. It deepens your roots, anchoring you in places that storms can't uproot. Think about a tree. What happens when winds beat against it? The branches sway, the trunk bends, but underground the roots stretch deeper, digging for stability. That's what your silence does. It drives your spirit deeper into God, making you strong where no one can see. When you stop defending yourself, you gain the strength to hear heaven's defense. When you stop explaining yourself, you open your spirit to receive clarity that arguments can't bring. This is why silent seasons often feel lonely. They strip away distractions, peel back false connections, and leave you face to face with God alone. But that intimacy is where unshakable faith is forged. Jesus himself modeled this. Over and over, he withdrew into solitary places not because he was weak, but because he was wise. The miracles people saw in public were born in the silence of prayer. Your silence is doing the same. It's training your ears to hear whispers others miss. It's preparing your spirit to walk in authority that noise cannot carry. So don't despise the quiet. It's not wasted. It's building a foundation inside you that enemies cannot touch. Chosen one, embrace the silence, because it is turning you into someone stronger than storms and steadier than fire. All along this journey, silence has been more than the absence of words. It has been your shield, your training ground, your unseen weapon. From Joseph to Jericho, from David's caves to Jesus' prayers, heaven has shown us that quiet seasons are not empty, they are sacred. And here's the truth you must carry with you. The silence you endure today is shaping the sound of your testimony tomorrow. That's why the enemy has fought so hard to provoke you. He knows one careless word could undo months, even years, of preparation. But every time you resisted, every time you bit your tongue and chose stillness, you built something eternal. You built trust, you built character, you built a space for heaven to move without interference. Even now, as you listen, heaven is orchestrating a vindication you won't have to explain. Your life itself will be the proof. The very people who doubted you will have no choice but to see what God has done. So don't be fooled into thinking silence is small. It is the language of heaven's deepest strategies, And when you align with it, you step out of the noise of men and into the power of God. Before we close, let me say this: thank you to every single one of you who has subscribed, who has supported, who has carried this message further than I ever could alone. Oversubscription isn't just about numbers, it's a sign that heaven is gathering a remnant, a family, a movement of people who understand that God is speaking even in silence. So let this word settle inside you. Your silence is not defeat. It is positioning. It is warfare. It is worship. And soon, it will become the stage for your greatest testimony. Chosen one, guard your silence, because when heaven speaks for you, the whole world will know.